Obviously, you've heard this clip and you know who the person is with the purple hair and the big round shades. And if you're anything like me, you had no clue who she was a month ago. Now she's the new darling of the American left. But we'd be wrong to think that that's all she is, or to just slag her off as a mindless drone. She does parrot the left-wing oppression narrative, but there is something else going on here. Listen to this.
On.
Say what you will about her, she's a leader. Here we have dozens of elite athletes who have no problem with Megan Rapinoe getting all of the attention. Obviously, a lot of them love and respect this young woman. I've spent a good bit of the last few days listening to her talk. It's true that she's a bit arrogant and self-congratulating. Obviously, she's not the easiest person to like, so you know that she must be leading these women with something other than leftist tropes. They won the championship after all. Don't worry, I'll get around to busting her balls in just a minute. But first, let's just listen to her for a second. I'll comment, and then you can comment. She was in celebration mode in New York, mostly speaking off the top of her head, in one of the most liberal cities on earth. It would be surprising if she didn't go for some woke hipster posturing. Here's a taste.
This group is so resilient, is so tough, has such a sense of humor. It's just so badass. Like, there's nothing that can faze this group. We're chilling. We got tea sipping. We got celebrations. We have pink hair and purple hair. We have tattoos and dreadlocks. We got white girls and black girls and everything in between. Straight girls and gay girls. Hey!
You hear how she went into a sort of mechanical voice when she was listing off the different types of people on the team? White girls, we got black girls, we got gay girls, we got straight girls. This is what people do when they plan to say something that suddenly feels forced. They say it in a sort of character voice. What she was realizing at that moment is that she was categorizing her friends by their superficial characteristics. Yeah, like they think we do. But she also spoke of the team's resiliency, their refusal to feel sorry for themselves, their sense of humor. That was leadership stuff there, and it sounded like our values. This person has something to offer. Stay with me. If she could just see past the anti-conservative doctrine that she has absorbed in her gay California bubble. And let's face it, having been thrust into the spotlight in a country where everything is politicized, she's kind of stuck with being political. But here she gets to something more human, more universal.
I think I'll just end with this. This is my charge to everyone. We have to be better. We have to love more, hate less. We got to listen more and talk less. We got to know that this is everybody's responsibility. Every single person here. Every single person who's not here. It's every single person's responsibility. There's been so much contention in these last years. I've been a victim of that. I've been a perpetrator of that. With our fight with the Federation, sorry for some of the things I said. Not all of the things. But it's time to come together. This conversation is at the next step. We have to collaborate. It takes everybody.
I agree with her. We should love more and hate less. We should collaborate across the lines of disagreement. But just the night before she made that speech, she'd been on CNN with Anderson Cooper. Within the first minute, he played this clip and asked her to respond.
Are you excited about going to the White House?
I'm not going to the fucking White House. No, I'm not going to the White House. We're not going to be invited.
You're not going to be invited?
I doubt it.
Her response made it very clear that her attitude and the substance of her words have not changed. Given the rigid bias of her social group, I understand why she doesn't want to affirm Donald Trump by visiting the White House. From her standpoint, going could only be a bad move. Not going will get her more and bigger speaking fees and endorsement deals. She can't very well challenge the Trump assumptions of her tribe. They would turn on her like progressives. This is what happens when Cooper asks her to directly address the president.
Oh, message to the president. I think that I would say that your message is excluding people. You're excluding me. You're excluding people that look like me. You're excluding people of color. You're excluding, Americans that maybe support you. I think that we need to have a reckoning with the message that you have and what you're saying about Make America Great Again. I think that you're harking back to an era that was not great for everyone. It might have been great for a few people, and maybe America is great for a few people right now, but it's not great for enough Americans.
She apparently holds the president personally responsible to care for every last American, especially ones who look like her. Since she's white, I'm assuming that she means gay people. Is she aware that in February of this year, the president launched a global initiative to decriminalize homosexuality? In countries where gay people are not allowed to exist, let alone scold their governments on CNN. Maybe when that happened, she was listening less and talking more. She called him out for not including people of color. Does she know that in January, the president supported and signed the First Step Act? This is the first real effort to roll back aspects of Clinton's crime bill that are seen as unfairly penalizing black people. Maybe that happened on a day that she was hating more than loving. I guess that she is referring partially to the non-citizens storming our southern border. Does Ms. Rapinoe know that the people hurt most by the heavy influx of illegal cheap labor are black Americans, Hispanic Americans, and women? I assure you that she's never thought of it that way. Let's be frank here. Rapinoe and her radical feminist fangirls have not listened to one word spoken by a conservative in their entire lives. The hostility we now have in our country seems so much more heated only because conservatives now fight back. Before social media gave them a voice, they just stood quietly by while the left slandered them without mercy. That side of the fight has been heated since Nixon was in the White House. This young woman, educated in Portland, Oregon, and living in a leftist bubble ever since, has no idea whether the assumptions she holds about Trump voters have any validity. She goes on to talk to Cooper about her brother. They grew up in Redding, California, one of the inland areas of the state where life has a distinct Breaking Bad flavor to it. Lots of bored kids doing drugs. Her brother has been in and out of prison ever since. Of course, on a woke show with a woke anchor, she talked about the prison system as if that was the problem. Of course. Let me pretend that Anderson Cooper has just asked me to speak directly to Miss Rapinoe. Hi, Megan. Congratulations. I'll try very hard not to make negative assumptions about you like you have made about the president. I'm no athlete, and I've never played team sports, but your description of what makes your team so badass, it rang a bell from me. It sounded to me like a description of American exceptionalism. Your words could have been spoken by Donald Trump in his salute to the military a week earlier. Tough, resilient, impossible to stop, but also casual and full of fun. Fighters for good who don't take themselves too seriously. That's your country, Megan. You don't interact very often with conservatives, do you? I myself was a folk singer surrounded on all sides by left-wingers for many years. Many of them had activism in their hearts and axes to grind. They were not listeners. They were hurt people who had taken on layers of doctrine that they'd been told would liberate them. But the doctrine didn't liberate them. It isolated them from everybody but their own group. It set them at odds many times with the very people who had given them life. It made them defensive if challenged and dismissive in advance toward anybody who might see the world through a different lens. I grew up in California too, the San Gabriel Valley. Before you were even born, I'd seen gay people go from oddities that did feel threatened to cultural heroes. Let's be honest, you have never lived in America where being gay was really that much of a liability. It's an important part of why you are now a celebrity. But I do understand that growing up in Redding is not the same thing as growing up in, say, Santa Cruz. So, let's move on. There's an interesting phenomenon on the left. Whenever somebody says something good about how our country used to be, The left-wing mind always falls instantly on what was wrong with the country at that time. If I say, yeah, let's make America great again, a progressive will only think that I'm talking about a return to oppression. It's a glitch in the activist mind. As a voting Democrat for 35 years, I'm qualified to talk about this. The progressive mind is magnetized only toward what is wrong with society. They focus on that and ignore everything else. I have a feeling that you don't fit as well inside that box as you think you do. Would your brother have been better served by thinking of himself as a victim of circumstance? Or by consistently telling himself that the problems in his life were the result of his own behavior, his own choices? When your team was up against it, did you preach victimhood to your teammates? It's a rhetorical question, of course. No team wins big if they believe that outside forces control their destiny. But that's what today's Democrats are selling, Megan. Do you really want people to live in fear of oppressors they may never run into? You have said that you'd love to go to Washington and speak with, and I quote, anybody who believes in the same things we believe in, unquote. That doesn't really sound like a champion talking. It certainly doesn't follow the great advice you gave to us, to collaborate across the lines of disagreement. So, I hope you keep at it. I hope that you remember that while you were getting all Kaepernick, your teammates were standing for the anthem with their hands on their pounding hearts. That when you threw the flag on the ground, another gay woman picked it up and was universally praised for that by Trump supporters. Really, conservatives don't hate lesbians, and neither does Donald Trump. You won, Megan. Whatever pain may have dogged you in the past has been overcome. Reach out to your fellow citizens without the left-wing filter. Let that be the platform from which you speak. Assume the best about people, even if they don't have tattoos and purple hair. I'm confident that your country will surprise you with its openness. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, subscribe to our channel and then click the little bell to get notifications.